So a cat died and went to heaven, and God met the cat there, and God said, you've been a good cat, so you just ask for whatever you want and you can have it. So the cat said, I was raised in a barn, and I've slept on these hard floors all my life, and so I would just like a big fluffy pillow. And God said, done. You get this big fluffy pillow. So a few days later, 6 mice died in an accident, and they all came to heaven together. And God made them the same offer. Said, you've been great. Ask for what you want. And the mice said, all of our lives we've had to run from dogs and cats and even people with brooms. And boy, it would be really nice if we just had some roller skates. God said, done. So a few days go by, and God's walking around heaven and comes upon the cat, and the cat's just chilling, laying on this pillow, and God goes over and taps the cat and said, how you doing? And the cat looked up and said, I am wonderful. I love my life. And this pillow, it's the most comfortable pillow, and those Meals on Wheels you've been sending over are delicious. It was good. I liked it, yeah. Okay, let's share our affirmation again together. I am available to more good than I've ever experienced, imagined, manifested, or expressed before. So I'm going to invite you to turn to somebody and say, I'm available to my good. And then I want you to turn to somebody and say, you have more good coming than you can imagine. Woohoo! That feels good, doesn't it? Good job. Good job. So we are in the midst of a series based on Reverend Michael Bernard Beckwith's book called Life Visioning. And in this book, Michael talks about the stages of the evolution of our consciousness. And there's 4 in particular that he talks about. There are more stages than that, but the 4 that he talks about. And so they are the victim stage. This is the to me. And this is a stage, and we talked about this one, where life is happening to me, where I'm blaming, where I'm in anger and resentment, where I'm like nothing is about me. It's all about everything outside of me. And thank good we don't live in the victim stage, yes? Do we actually like travel there sometimes? Sure we do. Absolutely. And that's the beautiful thing, as he said about these stages, they're not linear. We're kind of moving in and through them. But the great thing is, as we move along the spiritual journey, we spend a lot less time in the victim stage. Even if we get there, we get out of there pretty quickly. Stage 2 is by me, or the manifestor stage. We're going to talk more about that today. Stage 3 is the through me, or the channeler stage. And then the last stage is as me, or being consciousness. So the stage that we're at today and that we were at last week is the by me stage. This is the manifestor stage. And this is the point at which we start to recognize that, hey, we are participating in our lives. Whether we have known it or not, we've been participating in our lives. This is where we start to become conscious that we are co-creators, that we are active participants in the experiences that we have in our life and ultimately in the world around us. Michael Beckwith says that our lives are not happenstance, they're not accidental, that they don't happen just by chance, that there are universal laws at work. How many of us know there are universal laws at work in our life? Absolutely. Thank God that there's universal laws that work in our lives. And he says we are participating in that which appears to be happening to us by our thoughts, our thought patterns, opinions, beliefs, views, and perceptions. And to the degree that we begin to alter that, we begin to change our lives. How many of us already have experienced that in our life, that as we've shifted our focus, our lives have changed for the better? Yeah. And those of you who haven't, woo, this is going to be awesome. So the title of today's talk is not Hocus-Pocus. It is Focus-Pocus. And so first I'm going to talk about this from a basic quantum physics kind of a level. And so when we look at our life through a scientific lens, we see that in the material sense, our body is composed of it's a highly functioning community of about 60 trillion living cells. And if we look closer at those cells, we see that they are actually made up of atoms. And if we look at those atoms, we see that they are made up of subatomic particles. And when we look at those subatomic particles, they can express in one of two ways. They express either as a particle, which is matter, or they express as a wave, which is pure potential. The fascinating thing that has been discovered through quantum physics is that the determining factor between whether something is expressing as a particle or something is expressing as a wave is focus. Where focus is directed, we see particles, but when the focus is removed, there are waves. So, and it goes on to say, we are all players on the quantum field of life. The subatomic substance of the universe is responding to the intensity of our focus, which leads us to the intensity of our dominant feelings. And we'll, can call that our vibrations, our faith, our consciousness. We can call that whatever we want to call it. So let's talk for a minute about the law of attraction. How many of us have heard of the law of attraction? Okay. Thoughts held in mind produce after their kind. So in a very simple way, so I have a thought. Let's say I know that it's supposed to rain later today. I do not know that. I haven't looked at the weather. But let's say that thought comes to my mind. And then I have that thought, and then another thought that says, oh, I wish it wasn't going to rain today. And so a thought kind of like it was attracted. And then another thought comes along, and it says, man, we've had a lot of rain lately. And then there's three thoughts now. And then as I continue to focus on the initial thought, and now these thoughts, now more thoughts are being added to the initial thought that I have. So that's the thoughts held in mind produce after their kind. So here's the thing, though. As we hold on to now this thought energy, we begin to create a feeling. So the longer that we're focused on something, then we start to create a feeling. And the feeling is the energy, is the vibration that is sending the signals to what we would call the substance of God, to the infinite intelligence. And it is responding to our strongest feelings. Sometimes we get frustrated because we'll say, I've done my work, and I visualize, I focus, I think these thoughts. But if we don't have the feeling with it, the feeling is what really starts to, as our Reformation says, shape and form and mold this substance and bring forth of its kind. So when I look at Jesus, and I look at how he walked through his life, he walked with this full awareness. He walked with this knowing of what he lived and moved and had his being in, and he knew that very same thing for everyone else. And so he had this vibrational energy that was just powerful. And that's why he could go up to somebody and he could say, pick up your mat and walk. And they were responding to his energy that was knowing. His energy knew for them and could increase that feeling, that intensity in them. And, whether it was that he was thanking God for more than enough food to feed the 5,000, or he was healing somebody who was deaf or blind, it was always that absolute knowingness and intensity of his vibration that could literally, when he talked about moving mountains, could move mountains. It could literally create change, affect immediate change in the people around him. And I always think about that he said, you can do even greater things than I. And we've just tapped into a teeny tiny bit of it. And there's so much more power that we have and ability if we open ourselves up to it. And it's not that we have to go around thinking, hey, I've got to go heal people. And at the same time, guess what? It's possible. It's absolutely possible because he showed us that. So what are some tools that we might use for this time I'm sorry. It is a little bit warm. Thank you. I see some fanning going on, so thank you. So what are some tools that we would use for this stage, the manifestor stage? Well, we've already been using one. It's an affirmation. And so the next one in that is declaration, the power of our words, the power of the spoken word. So we have this affirmation, and our affirmation is, I'm available to more good than I've ever experienced, imagined, manifested, or expressed before. How's that feel? Pretty kind of blah, kind of low. But if I say, and I declare it, I am available to more good than I've ever manifested, experienced, expressed, or imagined before. Totally different feeling, right? And so it's important that we have an affirmation that is supported by a declaration, the declaration of it, that can bring that feeling energy, that vibration. That is what is affecting the particles of the substance of the universe. And then denials. In Unity, it's funny because we're called the feel-good church, and I'm like, I'm happy that we're the feel-good church. I don't want you guys to go home feeling bad. and that we are always so positive. We don't look at things, and that's absolutely not true. I mean, it's true. We're pretty positive, but a denial doesn't mean that we don't look at what is. So an example would be, I cut all 4 of my fingers about 3 weeks ago. And so I went to see a hand surgeon this last week, and everything is good. I'm so happy. And they said, I have no feeling in the tips of my fingers. And they said that it would take 8 to 10 months for this feeling to come back. Now, I can go down 2 roads here. Now, so I look at that and I say, okay, that's what the medical society says. That's, and that's okay. That's fine if that's what it takes. But for me, I am going to know that it's not going to take near that long. So the denial is I deny that opinion has any true power in my experience. And so you see that I just deny that the opinion has any true power, because there's only one presence and one power, and it is God. And God is all powerful, and God is, as me, I am bringing that healing energy into my fingers, and they will heal well before that 8 to 9 month period. So we see a denial is not saying, hey, it doesn't exist. I mean, it exists. But it's saying it doesn't have any true power. Another tool that we would use is visualization. And visualization is where we are creating something either through writing it or through using something like a treasure map, putting pictures out, but creating something that is a visual for us that we can focus on. And then working even with a mastermind group. So a mastermind group are people who are like-minded that you can share your vision with, and you're going to support each other. You're going to say yes, and you're going to vision that and see that for the people around you. And this is powerful, you guys. I did not want to skip over the manifestor stage because it's so powerful. And I want us to really be in the awareness of what this is, because we are creating all the time, no matter what. We're creating with whatever is that biggest intensity, that biggest vibration, the greatest focus. We're creating all the time. And so why not take charge of our thoughts and move those thoughts in the direction that we really want to experience? Does that not just make sense? Yes, it does make sense. But we have to be committed, and that's why a spiritual practice is important. We have to be committed to doing the work, to shift and to start moving. I always love the thought of the big ship, and I keep, it's the rudder, but there was something else that it's called. Anyway, what was it? Trim tab. Thank you, the trim tab, yes. And so the ship is going in this direction, and we want it to go in this direction. Well, the ship just all of a sudden doesn't go whomp. The trim tab, it's a gentle move, but you have to keep making sure that you're moving in that direction. And that's our lives. We can't, a lot of times what happens is people, they say this stuff doesn't work because it's not happening soon enough. And that's a lot of times when people just, they'll come into Unity for a while and then they'll leave. And it's just hang in there, stay with it. I can tell you from a personal perspective, my life is just unbelievable how much I've experienced this in my life. How many of us feel that way? That is just amazing. Yeah. So if you're here kind of new, take a look at that, because that's important. So it's so important that we're doing this work. But I want to take it to this next level where we're going to, be able to move into that next stage. And this is where Jesus said, seek ye first the kingdom of God, and all these things will be added unto you. Seek first the kingdom of God. And so here's the thing. So we can get very specific in our visualizing, and we can say, you know what, there's this job, it's my job. And I know I'm going to get this job. All of my focus is going to be on getting this particular job. And then we don't get it. And what happens if we don't get it is we start to doubt. We think we didn't do it good enough, or we didn't do something right, or we just kind of start to give up on the process itself. But when we get underneath to what experience we want to have, it's totally different. So, okay, I see this job, and to me, this job is perfect. And so I look at the qualities of this job. I look at the essence of it, and I start to get clear on what do I think this job is going to give me. Well, it's going to give me freedom. It's going to give me abundance. It's going to give me connection, opportunities for creativity, flexibility. We start to get underneath it. And, this is really when we're seeking the kingdom. We go really to the qualities of God, because most of those things would be qualities of God. And now, when we're visualizing, and you can still focus on this job, but feel the feelings of it, and then this or something better, be open. Because here's the thing, when we get too focused on it having to be a certain thing, these structures of knowing come up, and we can't see anything else. And I promise you, there's all kinds of opportunities that are bubbling up all around you, but you can't see them because it's only about this one thing. But when we let those structures of knowing down, guess what? Opportunities start presenting themselves, ideas start to come, you run into people, not because they weren't there, they were there all the time. It's because you have opened your focus up. So whatever it is that you're desiring to shift in your experience, if it's your health, and do a visualization, whether it's in your mind or write it down or do a treasure map with healthy people, but really get underneath to what will that bring me. It'll bring me freedom and, again, flexibility and joy and happiness and adventure. And you start to focus on those things as you're focusing on your health. And you'll be surprised, again, at the things that show up that you wouldn't have thought of before. It's powerful, you guys. It's powerful. And like I said, we're going to be in this manifester stage over and over again. If Paul and I were looking to buy a new house, the place we're going to go first is we're going to go and create a vision and discern, what is it that we would like in a house? And then we would go from there. But it's powerful. And I invite you and I encourage you to do this in every area of your life. Because if there's areas of your life that aren't working, that there's this kind of divine discontent, it can't change until you change. It will not change until you change. And it's simply changing one thought at a time, trim tab, one thought at a time, one thought at a time, one thought at a time. So your job this week is really pretty simple and fun, is that I want to encourage you to get some of these tools out. And to really utilize them, to write your affirmations, to declare them, to create a vision, do a treasure map. We love doing treasure mapping here. But create these things and then get underneath and say, what are the qualities? And then take time to be with those qualities. And you'll be amazed. You will be absolutely amazed and in awe of what will show up in your experience. So we're going to one more time share in our affirmation together. I am available to more good than I've ever experienced, imagined, manifested, or expressed before. And so it is. You guys rocked on that. I do want to tell you that next week we're going to talk about, hold on. Next week, we're going to talk about the Through Me stage, and we're going to be talking about meditation. And I'll share a couple of opportunities that you'll have here to move deeper into meditation. And then on Soulful Saturday, I wanted to remind us all again that we're going to do the visioning process. So mark that on your calendar. I can't tell you what day it is off the top of my head. When is it? Thank you. The 15th of April. And as many as are here, it's going to be an awesome experience. But this will be the process itself with Michael Beckwith. So namaste. Namaste.